Chris Hensley is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer member of FINRA SIPC, investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Houston First Financial Group are not affiliated.
The Houston Midtown chapter of the Society for Financial Awareness presents Money Matters with your host, Christopher Hensley.
Good morning, everybody. You're listening to KPFT Houston Money Matters. I'm Chris Hensley. The time is now 11 a.m. Got a great show lined up for you today. As you know, we have dedicated this entire month to having Houston Money Week partners come on, talk about Houston Money Week, talk about their role, talk about their organization, have a chance to learn a little bit more about what these different partners and groups and organizations are doing here in Houston. I'm excited to have live in the studio Christine Powell and Drucilla Tigner with the Women's Resource of Greater Houston. So please stay tuned. Keep listening. They are live here in the studio with us today. But as you know, if you're a longtime listener, we always use just the first few minutes of the show to tell you just a little bit about what's going on in the Houston and the Gulf Coast region when it comes to financial literacy. With that, so we actually have quite a few events. I just mentioned that we're still here in April, National Financial Literacy Month. That's represented in Houston as Houston Money Week, although that's a little bit misleading because Houston Money Week is the entire month of April for us now. We've grown so big. And we're at the last week, so we do have a couple of events. We're going to talk a little bit more about those specific Houston Money Week events with our guests today. So I'm going to leave those off the calendar, and we'll kind of dive into them. In May, as we've devoted the whole month to Houston Money Week, we'll start getting other guests in May. So we've got local personal injury attorney Tommy Servo will talk about things that you need to do if you actually get into an accident and how to save money and things that you have to need to have on your radar if that happens to you. We will be talking with author Dean Radden. His new book, Real Magic, that was released this month. We'll kind of pick his brain and kind of go over that with him. That's kind of a nod to Art Bell, who passed away this month. Also, when it comes to seminars, I will be having a teacher retirement seminar at the Youngman Library. That is going to be on May 26th. That is going to be from 10 to 12. That is free and open to the public, but that is specifically talking about teacher retirement system, Social Security issues for teachers who are employed, who have state pensions. We will also be hosting an event on 6/20. That is going to be also a Social Security event, but we're going to have expert Elaine Simmons, who is not a expert. She is the expert when it comes to Social Security. She is an ex-Social Security employee in the financial services industry. She's one of the most sought-after speakers when it comes to Social Security topics. So we will be doing something with her. I've been trying to get her on the show, and we will be having her actually do a talk for us on 6/20. So keep listening. Stay tuned to find out more about that. With that, let's go ahead and I'm looking right at you. Let me get the mics on. And there you go. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris.
Absolutely. So usually what I'll do is I'll share your bio with listeners so that they can get to know you just a little bit better. And you've got, because you've both got big bios here. Let me read this here. So Christine, you are the executive director of Women's Resource since 2014. You're a passionate advocate for social equality and has devoted your career to helping the underserved in your community. You began your career with YMCA, eventually working your way up to executive director there. You had a unique opportunity to work on a national pilot project with the Institute of Healthcare Improvement and Stanford University, challenging attitudes and beliefs around health and wellness in underserved communities. Christine, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Could you share something about yourself, maybe outside of the bio, so listeners can get to know you just a little bit better?
Absolutely. So I am a mother of 2 teenage boys. getting ready to send both of them off to college in the next 2 years.
Yay.
So let me tell you about financial education and literacy.
Excellent. And Drucilla, let me share your bio with listeners as well. You spent your career as a zealous advocate for underserved communities, and prior to joining the team at the Women's Resource, you were an attorney specializing in consumer advocacy, which includes Fair Credit Reporting Act and Fair Debt Collection Practice Act litigation. As a result, you've had in-depth understanding of credit reporting agencies, and debt collection. Before beginning your legal practice, you worked in areas of communication and development. Could you as well tell us just a little bit about yourself, maybe outside, something that's not on the bio?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm a cat mom. I'm not a mom of kids yet.
Oh, that counts. That totally counts.
I think it does, and yeah, like everybody, I enjoy reading, and I like to exercise. I mean, I'm not that interesting of a person outside of my bio, I guess, except for my cat, of course.
Cats are extended family members.
Yeah,
We've got
I think
two.
so. Yeah.
Well, great. So let's dive right into it, because I'm surprised that you have not been on the show before, because you are one of the largest Houston Money Week partners. And when we talk about getting out in the community and having educational workshops, you are, I believe, the number one spot for the amount of people that you're actually seeing. Mm-hmm. And so we're honored to have you on the show. Can you tell us a little bit for Houstonians, for people outside of Houston who are listening who don't know about the Women's Resource of Greater Houston? Can you tell us a little bit about the organization?
Sure. So we've actually been around for 28 years. I consider ourselves to be probably the best kept secret in Houston. But we were founded on the belief that a woman who controls her finances controls her destiny. And we really do believe that education is the foundation for which all of that starts, and believe that those lessons are best learned early and often. So we have a program for teenage girls in the 9th grade. We follow them all the way through to graduation, and we teach them about the fundamentals of personal finance, but also how to set goals beyond high school towards education, and the finance knowledge that it takes to reach that. And then we also have educational classes, like you mentioned, for women in the community. And so this year we will, reach over 4,000 women in our classes as they begin to learn about the fundamentals of finance.
So tell me a little bit about the constituents that you are going out and talking to. I know the scope of actually who you're reaching out to, and it's a lot more than a lot of nonprofits that are out there that are kind of doing the same thing, but you guys are doing it on a broader scale, and you're actually, give us some examples of the different walks of life of people that you're reaching out to in the community.
Sure. So we actually focus on women who are outside of the financial mainstream generally. So it's women who are usually in some sort of state of transition in their lives, or they're in a state of crisis, or they're just now getting back on their feet, like they're starting a new job, or some sort of new program. So we actually work with other nonprofits in the area, and that's how we're able to reach so many women, is that we like to say, if you can think of a nonprofit, we're probably working with them. So it's 40 different nonprofits, and we reach those women where they are. So we go to the partner and we provide the services in-house. And so it's a great opportunity to reach women really when they're in a state to where they're ready to get back on their feet, and they're ready to really start engaging with their finances in a meaningful way. Mm-hmm. And we're doing it to where it's as convenient for them as possible. So they don't have to get in their car, they don't have to drive, they don't have to get on the bus. We're providing their services like where they are.
So tell me a little bit more about that, because I know a lot of employers, it's often hard to get some of these financial literacy classes to employers because they're taking time off the clock and that sort of stuff. I'm actually on your email list, so listeners, if you're interested in volunteering, you need to reach out to them. But I've seen you guys go out to apartments to, give us some examples of places that you've done outreach at.
Absolutely. So we're at the Harris County Jail.
There you go. That's
we work with a lot of the transitional housing programs in the city. We work with the domestic violence shelter, substance abuse recovery centers in Houston, the Women's Home and the Women's Center, and We're in colleges, a lot of the community colleges throughout Houston. We provide classes to their freshmen, which is really important if you think about, where they are in life. And financial education is so important for them.
You mentioned earlier the finance classes for the teenage girls, and that's kind of the when you think of it when people are in transition, but also catching them before mistakes are made.
Yeah, right.
That's a perfect time to introduce the concepts of financial literacy. Tell us a little bit about the partnership with Houston Money Week. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So we have actually been a Houston Money Week partner since its inception, 10 years ago, I think, this year, right? This is our 10-year anniversary, which is great. And as you mentioned earlier, we are one of the largest, if not, I think we provide the most amount of classes and programming for Houston Money Week, which we're very proud of that. And, our partnership, like anything, waxes and wanes, but we've always been consistent as far as providing our services for Houston Money Week and beyond. So it's been a great partnership for us. The mission of Houston Money Week is so in lockstep with our mission that it just makes such great sense to continue our partnership, and we're excited to be here.
Absolutely. And when we do Houston Money Week, we have very few rules, and one of the rules is that we don't charge anything. The events are free and open to the public. Is that the same with your organization?
Sure.
For the events that you go out and do the educational seminars?
So for the Houston Money Week seminars, we're free, and we're 100% open to the public for all of those. Throughout the rest of the year, we do have classes that are open to the public, but most of our classes are closed for the participants who are in our partners. But we do also have community. So
that's the organizations that you're involved with. They'll host it, and
exactly.
You'll go out and perfect.
And those are all closed, but.
Okay.
We do. If you're interested in our classes, you can go on our website. It's thewomensresource.org, and we have our public classes listed there.
So if you're driving right now, don't pull out a pen. We'll have this on the podcast notes as well. But if you are interested in volunteer opportunities, if you're interested in hosting a seminar or workshop as well, reach out. As I said, www.thewomensresource.org. Give us some examples of how is your organization structured? Is there a board? Is it all volunteers, or how does that work?
So we do have a board of directors. While we do have a very small staff, volunteers are the ones who are teaching all of our classes. We have volunteers who are also coaches, and so we rely heavily on the support of the community in fulfilling our mission. So great opportunity to get involved is to become a volunteer. We offer orientations every month.
So I'm just making notes here because some of what makes you guys great. I'm not dissing any of the other nonprofit organizations out there, but the fact that you are going out to Harris County Jail, that you are going out to these shelters for people that are in transition, and really reaching out to those groups, and that's huge. Tell us a little bit about the growth you've been. You're not new to it. This has been going on for 28 years now. Can you tell us a little bit about the time that you've been there and how you've seen the organization maybe grow or change?
Sure. So I have been with the organization for 3 years, and we have grown tremendously. And that really has a lot to do with the fact that we have increased our programming. We've developed new programs. So while we believe that the foundation for everything is education, individuals need additional support to take that knowledge and turn it into, change for their lives. And so after people complete our classes, we have 2 new programs to now support them beyond the educational component. They can work with a coach one-on-one. And we also have possibility groups, which are small groups. They last for 10 sessions. Women join those groups, work on a financial goal, and together they, make amazing things happen in their life.
So that's important, the idea of actually following up after these workshops, because there's a lot of disconnect there. We'll go out and do these one-off workshops, but they're really, how effective are we out there and actually following up and having an opportunity to work with a coach I mean, how great is that to be able to see that and kind of see some of the results there from that? Have you noticed, and you said that there's a tremendous growth, increased growth there. Have you noticed a lot of the nonprofits since Harvey that there has been more people in transition from that? Was there an uptick or an upsurge in?
Yes, I would say that many of our partners that we work with saw an uptick in the amount of people that they were seeking services, and it's still there. So
that's and I think people tend to forget. That's one of we've got our 10-year anniversary with Houston Money Week, and it started with a hurricane. When we started, there was a hurricane, and then in the 10th year, we're a year out from Harvey, but we're seeing people that are still rebuilding financially from what they lost. And so that the disaster recovery, the idea of being prepared for a rainy day or for something that you didn't count on that happened. Do you have any tips or ideas for people that are that need help when it comes to their finances?
I mean, I think a lot of people roll their eyes when you start talking about a budget because, one, everybody's heard of a budget, and two, everybody thinks they're budgeting when they're usually not. But a lot of our classes and really where we start with our clients is just the basic concepts of like how to make your money work for you. And really that's how you do it. You do it with a budget. You track where your dollars go. You track where you're spending it, where your big spending expenses are, and you plan for the future. People say like, I know what my monthly expenses are, and I know how much goes out the door basically, and it's stagnant throughout the year, but it's really not, right? So people aren't planning 6 months in advance. They're not planning for hurricane season, for example. You kind of just assume everything is going to stay as it is, and unless you have a budget that you're really working, it's really difficult to build into those unexpected expenses. Even if you have an emergency fund, you can't necessarily plan for a flooding. And while it's hard to budget for something like that, if you know it's coming, you can at least be more prepared as opposed to if you just, push it under the rug and don't think about it. Absolutely.
I know a lot of times it's, people will feel so hopeless that they'll kind of bury their head in the sand like an ostrich, I'm not even going to look at it. But there's kind of a weight that's lifted off your shoulders when you take really just a look at what your expenses are to know. Some things you have control of and some things you don't. I know that a lot of high-income earners, if we were being truthful, they're only a couple paychecks away and a Harvey-type situation from being in the exact same boat. So budgeting is a good focus. What other types of things do you talk about for people who want to get back on track?
Well, I think that, it goes along with budgeting. So the very first expense line in every single budget that you create should be paying yourself first. And so setting aside money every single month into that emergency savings account pays dividends, and it really does empower all of the women that we work with. And so, a lot of them are like, I just don't have anything. But even if you can just set aside $10 a month, it's the behavior. It's the actual doing it, and not so much how much money you're doing, but the discipline to do it every single month that can be life-changing for them.
And even just to piggyback on that a little bit, making your money work for you, while it pays dividends to put your money in an emergency savings account, say you've already built up your emergency savings account, knowing where every dollar goes, and you can start putting more money into, let's say, your income-bearing or interest-bearing accounts or your investment accounts, and that $1 now maybe doesn't seem like a lot, but 10 years from now, 50 years from now, you're getting hundreds of dollars back just by being able to allocate dollar for dollar where your money goes.
Absolutely. Both of those things are very, very important points. The paying yourself first, huge. Nobody's going to tell you that. They're not going to sit you down and say, hey, well, maybe you will. But most of the time, people aren't going to sit you down and say, hey, you need to pay yourself first and build that emergency savings. And then eventually, savings is like a muscle. The more you save, the stronger that habit gets. And then being able to shift it in interest-bearing accounts. But really having that safety net, that cushion in case something does happen is huge. So this is kind of a good leeway to talk a little bit about the events that we have coming up with Houston Money Week, because even though we are on the last week of April, there are some big events going on. Can you tell us a little bit about those events that are coming up this month?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Houston Money Week never ends. It's kind of how it feels, which is great. We want it to be all year long. So this weekend, we actually have a great event coming up Saturday, April 28th. That's Saturday, right? Yeah. From 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Brentwood Baptist Church. It's going to be a great opportunity. It's, like I said, 9 to 2. Lunch is free, so don't ever say you never get a free lunch. It's for children, college students, young professionals, and adults, and we'll talk about things like credit and college preparedness, home ownership, and entrepreneurship. And so it's going to be a great opportunity if you really need your basics on any of those things. You can come out, get some free food, and have a great time. But just to know that you have to register before, so you can do that. You can find information about that on our HoustonMoneyWeek.org website. And then we also have...
Yep. So and it's not too late to register. If you are a small business owner, you will want to sign up for the Innovation Week that actually starts on April 30th and goes through May 4th. So, yes.
So we're actually bleeding over into May now. Yeah.
It is. It's all year round. But it's going to be 30 free workshops, lectures on how to grow your small business, and sessions are going to be led by subject matter experts. So great opportunity for all entrepreneurs and nonprofit professionals.
So those are both events going on right now this week. We're still into April, even May, the beginning of May. You mentioned the website, HoustonMoneyWeek.org, so I'd encourage people, if they are still looking for free financial literacy events, to get on the website. They are free, open to the public, but you do need to register for attendance. With that, let's kind of switch back over and talk a little bit more about those life lessons that you guys are sharing with the public there. You talked about how to make your money stretch and paying yourself first. What other tips or ideas do you have for listeners?
I think my biggest tip, outside of just, making your money work, is don't be afraid of your credit report. I mean, so many people talking about, putting your head in the sand about things. People just don't want to know what's on their credit report. At 18, they got a credit card, they maxed it out, they forgot about it, and they're sure that it's ruining their credit, and they just don't want to see it, or whatever your story happens to be. But your credit is not your enemy. I mean, it can be your friend. And if you don't sit down and, take a glass of wine and take a look at it, you're just never going to know, and you're never going to be able to make it work for you. And also, I mean, beyond that, so as you mentioned at the lead, that I did some credit law for some time, and so many people have mistakes on their credit reports. 42 million Americans have a mistake on their credit report. So if it's not you, it's your husband, it's your wife, it's your kids, somebody probably has an inaccuracy on their report. And if you don't know about it, there's nothing you can do about it. And so really I encourage everybody to get out there and get your 3 free annual reports. You can go to annualreport.com to get those. Or, sign up for a service like Credit Karma, and you can get 2 out of your 3 credit reports, and also your scores, which is great and valuable information. So there's really no excuse now. There's resources everywhere to really go out and take control of your credit.
So the credit is such a huge issue, very, very important. That when you don't want to find out about it is you're sitting you're buying a new car. Or you're sitting down with a loan officer to purchase a home, and to find out that there's John Doe Sr. on your credit report instead of John Doe Jr. Mm-hmm. These inaccuracies are things that shouldn't be on there at all, showing up on the credit report. You mentioned a number. You said 42 million Americans have misinformation or things that are just completely wrong on their credit report. You also listed a couple different resources there, the annualreport.com. That's you can get your free credit report once a year on there. And then Credit Karma, which I had when I did credit talks for many years. People would mention Credit Karma, and I was, I don't know about that. And then I got on there, it's pretty cool, and it's free. I like the free part of it. Yeah. So there are different avenues out there that don't cost you anything to be able to take a look at the 3 different credit bureaus and see what's out there. What other things we can even talk about? Keep talking about credit if you'd like, or what other things do you mention when you have these workshops?
Yeah, I think one of the greatest concerns that we see when we're working with our clients is how many are living outside of their means. And that goes back to the budgeting. But so many are, end of the month using the credit card to pay for the groceries. And it's a cycle that you can continue for a while, but eventually it does catch up with you. And it really gets back to, that basic skill of budgeting.
Yeah, to piggyback on that a little bit, it's, a lot of people think that I'm not really living outside of my means, or they don't really realize it, but, 60% of Texans actually are exceeding their income every month, and if you're using your credit card all the time, a lot of times you don't realize it, right? So you're just kind of charging and you're paying it off, and you may not pay the whole card off every month, but you're still living outside of your means, which is, it's a dangerous, slippery slope that eventually will affect your credit, and it will impact your ability to get a car or a loan, or even to change to rent an apartment. And so it's a small change that people oftentimes just don't realize is happening, that they really are expending their income when they don't realize it.
It's huge. I don't think they do this anymore, but when I went to school, they used to set up in the bookshop. I think there's laws preventing them from doing this now, but that's how I got my first credit card. You're at the bookstore, and then they're giving you the free squishy ball, the whatever it is, it's something free. And then most people, that's how they used to get you on the credit cards. But it's super important. If you ask somebody what their emergency savings is, and the first thing they say is, "Hey, I got a credit card," wrong answer. So you mentioned it is all tied back to that budgeting, just not living outside of your means, knowing what, taking a snapshot of where you're at, not going down the credit card path. A lot of the times they'll get you 0% interest, and if you look at the fine print, it's double digits as soon as you miss one payment or you get past that introductory year. So you have to be conscious of that. Even if you have those credit cards, what are you getting wrapped up in?
Yeah, credit cards can be your friends. There's no doubt about it. Like, if you use your credit card to your advantage, great.
Right.
But a lot of people just don't, and they do it without realizing it, and that's just, it's a slippery slope.
So being aware, being conscious, the things you mentioned earlier, pulling the credit reports, being focused on that. Well, we're bumping towards the end of the show. What have I forgot to ask you that you want listeners to know about Women's Resource?
Well, I think that we want you to know that we're here, and that we are available, and that we're a resource to women in this community, and that we need volunteers, and we need the support of Houston. We are a nonprofit, so we couldn't do what we do without the Houstonians that support us every year. So we encourage everybody, I'm going to give it again, to go to our website, thewomensresource.org, or you can follow us on Facebook or on Twitter or link in with us on LinkedIn. I think that's what you say. But really just that, we're here, and, we're excited to work with everybody who wants to come in.
Absolutely. So I'm going to give on the website one more time as well. And thanks once again for being on the show. For listeners who'd like to find out more about Christine and Drucilla, you can visit www.thewomensresource.org. That is going to be on the podcast notes as well. They did mention that they are always looking for volunteers. And you mentioned earlier that Houston's best kept secret. Let's not keep it a secret.
Yeah.
Let's tell people about it. Once again, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
And you have been listening to KPFT Houston.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Money Matters Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, visit us on the web at www.moneymatterspodcast.com. Drop us a line on SpeakPipe on the right-hand corner. It will receive any voicemails, questions, thoughts, concerns that you have about the show. In addition to this, we recently launched a Patreon campaign. Click on the Donate Now tab to hit the tip jar and find out what Patreon's campaign is all about.